For most gardeners, contending with weeds is an unpleasant and toilsome task. We have some options for dealing with those wild and unwelcome plants, and we tour a North Shore garden that fuels the creativity of a local artist. Great gardening is straight ahead.
Every tree has a moment when it shines.
That's called moneywort or creeping Jenny.
You can go in and do a rejuvenating pruning.
Forage and feed for our native pollinator population.
A garden really gives you peace of mind.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Great Gardening, where we'll talk about those plants that you didn't intend to grow, weeds. And who better to give advice and information on that but our resident experts? Bob Olin, horticulturist and educator, and Tom Casper, president of Duluth Garden Flower Society. Welcome back. How was your time in the garden this week?
Actually, really quite nice.
Good.
I mean, we've had a nice combination, little sun, little rain. Today, even with the rain, was very good for setting out some transplants, and it's been a nice spring so far.
Right. Got a lot of work done.
Yeah, my back is killing me.
I can always tell.
Well, then we know you were in your garden a lot. and that's good. You'll have a lot to talk about tonight. All right. Well, tonight's phone volunteers are with the Carleton County Master Gardeners. We welcome them and say thanks for answering phones as our viewers call in with their garden concerns. Give the volunteers a call at the numbers on your screen, or you can email your questions to askgardening@wdse.org. Okay, well, one of the weeds that we've been seeing lately is pussy toes. We had an example of that on our show a few weeks ago. And Bob, you found even more.
Isn't that a lovely example?
That's a great picture.
You know, this is a weed that really thrives under low fertility environments. And believe it or not, someone's front lawn, they were evidently very pleased with that. But to eliminate that, we'd have to mow, and then we'd have to make sure that we created an environment that would be a little bit more conducive to grass, if that's really what you're looking for.
Okay. All right, and then we have another shot that you took, and I think this is quite lovely, and you obviously thought so too. You titled it A Field of Dreams.
Yeah, that's a field of dreams or someone's nightmare. It all depends on your perspective. I think if you're a pollinator or a bee, I think that's really a welcome sight. For other folks, maybe not. Let's put it that way.
Okay, all right. Well, lots more to talk about with regard to weeds and what to do with them. But we're going to answer some questions right now. We have some held over and some that were emailed to us. So let's start with Ron from Ely, who needs some ivy on a brick house. Has tried the Engelmann and one other, but can't get it to take against the wall.
He should try Virginia creeper. They have cuspid, or they have suction cups basically, so they will crawl up a brick wall.
And good and hardy.
Yep.
The English ivy is going to have little problems, perhaps even, Ely is even colder than we are right here. So Virginia creeper is a good choice.
Dolores Carlson says, help! Exclamation mark. She went to every greenhouse in Duluth looking for baby's breath. Gypsophilia?
Gypsophilia. Okay.
No luck. Found that she can order the seeds but not the plants, and is wondering if you guys know anything about local availability.
She can give me a call. I can help her find that.
Okay.
I've got some that I'll divide for her.
So.
There
We
you
can get
go.
some baby's breath. Because I haven't had any for a few years. Mine died out a while ago, and so great.
Yeah, beautiful. Comes in white or pink, and generally pretty hardy, at least a little closer to the lake. So.
But that's a good way to get something that you can't find at a greenhouse is look for it in people's gardens, and lots of times they'll give you a chunk of it.
Yeah, exactly. Gardeners share.
Okay. Rod from Duluth wants to know, can I use liquid fertilizer added to insecticide for spraying an apple tree?
I don't see any point in that, to be completely honest with you. There's a lot of discussion about what we call foliar feeds. We're using a liquid fertilizer on an apple, but an apple doesn't require a lot of fertility to begin with, and 98% of all fertility is going to be absorbed through the roots. So I don't see any point in that, and since we're talking about the insecticide, you have to be very certain that you have the pest there. You have to be careful about your application procedure. So I would separate pest control from fertility, two different topics. The fertility should go down in the ground for best results.
All right. Kelsey from Duluth wants to know of a perennial ground cover for part sun to shade.
And we talked about one a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was last week.
Yeah.
Pachysandra, or Japanese spurge, is great as a ground cover that does well in actually a pretty heavy shade. In most winters acts as a perennial or as an evergreen, so it keeps that green foliage throughout the winter. Beautiful little white flowers, only gets about that big. It takes a little while to establish, so it may be a bit of an investment for her to cover an area, but certainly worth it when it comes in. So.
Is lamium good for that type of area too?
Yeah, lamium will do well in a mixed shade as well.
Okay.
Little purple flowers or white flowers. A couple different varieties you can get it that's almost a white leaf to a sort of a mottled green as well. So.
Okay, thanks. Dick from Duluth has a purple clematis. It's huge, but no sprouts are showing.
You know, I think again he might be just a little early there. Now we had, and we've talked about this before, we had a challenging winter and people didn't suspect it because it was relatively mild. And yet we didn't have the kind of cool down you like, and we had very intense cold temperatures in the month of November. So there was quite a bit of winter kill and damage that was done this last year, but that can take some time to emerge, so I'd be a little patient yet.
Okay. This one just comes in from Dan in Duluth about a burning bush he's had for 10 to 12 years that's been beautiful, but this year only half of it's green, the other half has buds. They've been there for 3 weeks but aren't opening.
Exactly what we talked about, right?
Same kind of thing that we've had. Burning bush is a zone 4. By temperature really didn't get below that, but again, a very trying winter. Depending on the location, you may have seen some kind of different damage. You can prune that out and it will grow back in some of those areas, but it's certainly going to take years to recover. So.
And I think, Tom, I've seen a lot of wind damage on burning bush, so I think another location might be more appropriate.
Okay, one more quick one, then we have to move on. Elsie from Duluth wants a flowering cherry tree that grows well up here. Light pink flowers, a mature height of 12 to 15 feet.
Don't we all?
Cherry, we could find apple, but cherry is a challenge there.
Going to be a tough one, huh?
It's got to be hardy. I think in terms of cherries, North Star, Masabi, and Bali would be the 3 that she wants to pick from, but I don't believe any of those have pink bloom.
Well, and one of our phone volunteers tonight, Gladys, who's here, had a cherry, Bing cherry,
Right.
that had survived for many years in her West Duluth home, and recently had succumbed to one of those previous difficult winters, but had it for many years and it produced cherries. So
Yeah, so you just never know.
never know.
All right. Well, it is not just questions we get from Northland gardeners, but some great photos of what's going on in their yards and gardens. Here's this week's Grow and Show.
Here's just one fine example of what's in bloom right now in Superior. This particular crabapple tree comes from Kathleen Markin. Duane Esselstrom sends this look at his bleeding heart in Maple, Wisconsin. Jacques Smith of International Falls has deep purple Siberian iris at bloom before the purple lupin. And from Don and Nancy Larson, a selection of last summer's blooms include the floriferous white peony plant, Nancy's perfectly pink roses, and the roses that rise above a bed of bee balm. Hollyhocks grown up along the garage, where lilies and coneflowers also reside. These pretty pink petunias trail from a planter where a festive birdhouse is perched as well. And an array of blooming annuals and perennials encircle the patio and sitting space where the Larsons will repose when the heat of summer comes once more. We'd love to share your blossoms and blooms, so send pictures to greatgardening@wdse.org and let us show what you grow.
All right, those were lovely. And in just a bit, we're going to talk about plants that aren't so lovely, the weeds. But I want to take a couple questions before we move on to that. From Esco, this question comes: when you plant tomatoes, do you cut the bottom branches off? And then when planting the tomato, laying it on its side. I'm not sure what the laying it on its side means.
Okay, if you've got an elongated stem on the tomato is one of those plants that actually you can sprout root tissue off the stem. So if you've got an elongated stem it's a good idea to lay it kind of trench-like down in the ground.
Okay.
As far as taking off a few of the lower branches, if it's young, it probably doesn't hurt, and you take them off. You don't want anything that comes in contact with the soil.
All right.
And certainly a elongated stem, she could also plant it a little deeper because
Sure.
like you said, it will develop roots up that stem. So it is, if it is one of those really weak, if it hasn't had a lot of sun or something like that, plant it deep.
Just you want to stay in the topsoil always, so
Yeah.
sometimes that's the advantage of laying it down.
Here's a tomato question we had held over from last week, and that was Diane north of Duluth, who had brown and tan spots on her tomato plants. They weren't in the ground yet. Was wondering, is that blight, and is there a treatment for it?
Well, blight is one of these real generic terms
Yeah.
for lots of different types and conditions. This time of year, I wouldn't expect it to be early blight. It certainly is not late blight, probably not. The other one we worry about is septoria. You know, that could be some possible mechanical damage that occurred in the greenhouse, or it could even be water spotting that occurred in the greenhouse. So I really don't think it's blight, and I think it's way too early to do any kind of protective treatment. If you're going to be using any protective fungicides, we really won't start that until early July.
Okay. All right. Well, let's start talking about those weeds that people are always trying to get rid of. And we're going to start with a definition of the weed. And it isn't, you know, a hateful, ugly thing. The definition really is much simpler.
Much simpler. It's just a plant out of place, you know. And if you've got raspberries that are working down into your perhaps your pea patch, then the raspberry becomes the weed.
Sure.
So it's just a plant that's out of place. They are, however, they're very, very competitive. They compete for water, nutrients, sunlight, space. Can be very, very significant. As a matter of fact, most of the world's food supply would not be as large as it is if it hadn't been for the fact that we learned how to control weeds. And people should be aware of this, because not only are they not a little bit unsightly, they can really damage growth.
Okay. And we have a couple different types.
Yeah, people want to divide them. This is the way I think about it. Your perennial weeds, and we got these lovely examples on the left. There's a ground cover. It's the little purple flower underneath, creeping Charlie and dandelion. And then on the right, this is redwooded pigweed. These are all annual seedlings, and of course the dandelion and the creeping Charlie are perennial plants. So we handle them differently. Now, in controlling perennials, they can really be the biggest challenge. The reason they're so difficult is you've got these white structures here. This is a rhizome out of what we call a rhizomatous grass, and if you just try to cut that out, every time you take a cutting of that rhizome, you're going to get a new plant. So it really thrives on shallow cultivation, and we really have to mulch and cover or dig very completely to get rid of it. Just a shallow cultivation will encourage its growth. Annuals are much easier. Matter of fact, when they're just emerging from the seed, again, you don't see that underground structure. All you see in this case, that's white root, even though this is the redwooded pigweed. At this point, if you cultivate when they're very shallow, you'll kill them with very little effort.
And there are other ways to control them, whether it's organic or synthetic.
Yeah, I really think eliminating sunlight. If people don't want to use any type of herbicide or compound, you can control perennials in particular by covering very thoroughly. A mulch like a heavy straw, grass clippings, newspaper, cardboard, all these materials are going to deteriorate. Or if you're going to use a synthetic, a poly cover, you want to use black poly, the heaviest weight that you can get, because with perennial weeds, if one leaf comes through the plastic, then it feeds the rest of the system. So you got to get them under control.
And a lot of people looking for ways to do it without chemicals these days.
I think that's true. You always have to take a little look and you say, why does the weed have a competitive advantage over grass? Now, grass does require higher nitrogen, it requires full sun, it requires good drainage. So sun, nutrient levels, and drainage are going to be the big three that you're going to need to think about if you're trying to control weeds in your grass. And then you can dig, and you want to be fertilizing, you can plug aerate, you can overseed. You want to do everything you can to encourage the environment for the grass species.
Or you can do what this homeowner did.
Just tolerate
Let
and
it
enjoy.
go.
That's right. I'm sure there are a few honeybees and pollinators out there that really appreciated that lawn, huh?
Yeah.
All right, well, lots of good information on weeds and how to deal with them, and good luck to everybody out there. Again, you can just do what Tom does, and which is why his back is sore tonight. Get down and dig them out.
Old-fashioned way.
That's right. All right. Well, on the North Shore of Lake Superior, we visited a garden that not only inspires beauty in the landscape, but also provides inspiration for the gardener's artwork.
Hello and welcome. My name is Sandy Pillsbury Gretsons, and you're here at my garden in Castle Danger, Minnesota, and I'm really glad that you've come. I like to have some hanging vines, so you see vinca vine and licorice vine, and then lobelia, a couple different kinds of lobelia, and the verbena. I have lavitera's in there, as well as laurentia and angelina, and this is wire vine. I love the wire vine. My greenhouse is basically used for storage. This is my fairy garden. This is a new addition this year. Out of aquarium marbles, I've made a river that goes through it, and I've got little bridges and little pathways and miniature plants. This is a type of cranesbill geranium. It's called Splish Splash, and that is another one that just is kind of a wild child, but I just let it do its thing. It's fine. And then I've got various different kinds of sedum, and this is a barberry, which is it's the miniature variety. And then I have a very beautiful and unusual morning glory. Should we go in? This is my enclosed garden, and as we walk in, this is clematis, and as you can see, this one has gotten very tall. In this bed, as you can see, I still have a lot of lupin. A lot of people wonder what on earth this is. Ordinarily, you see this on ditches. It's a mullein, and I happen to really like it because on the Ojibwe medicine wheel, this is my plant totem. And then we have a campanella that's shown up really nicely, and we have dianthus. That's a meadow rue, and actually I got that as a gift from, I got it from a master gardener friend of mine. It'll just remain that kind of feathery greenish white flower, so this is quite stunning. We have what we call a nature trail on our property, and then of course we do have stairs down to the lake. There's 69 stairs. The soil is just really good, rich, porous black dirt, and I amend it with some cow manure and some peat moss, and then as I'm planting, I add blood meal and bone meal and some vermiculite. We're standing where the original footprint of this house was. This is the remains of the old fireplace, and as you can see, I've got things growing in the fire pit. Especially this year, the ferns were just glorious. I've added some daylilies, and I've added some more Siberian iris. I love Siberian iris. And with the varieties that I have, some are just now coming into bloom. I do a lot of plein air painting, certainly, going out into the environment, but then I also do studio. So it's kind of nice when I'm working in my studio to look out and see the gardens as well. And two, it inspires me to make sure that there's something that's always in bloom, so I could come out here anytime during the summer and paint what's in my environment. I really do like having annual boxes. I just think it adds a lot of really fun color to the gray of the house. I planted probably a little over 50 containers. This is our pond feature, and my husband has hand-picked all of the smaller rock that you see. He's gathered them from our beach and also on his travels up to Canada. So I looked for natural grasses that would grow, and they just have reseeded themselves. They just kind of grow wild. And then I wanted a few things that were butterfly friendly, so I have some butterfly bush and some Maltese cross. I was bemoaning the fact with one of my art buddies that I haven't been out plein air painting as much as I'd like this summer. And she said, well, you have been painting. You've been painting with flowers.
And we were all there last summer and able to tour Sandy's garden, and it was a lovely spot.
Stunning, and you know, the colors are so vivid, and oftentimes we have a short season, a little cool right now, but from that we get these tremendous vivid colors that they would envy just a little bit farther south.
Yeah, right. Okay, let's get back to some questions, shall we? Nancy in Babbitt has an elephant ear plant. How should she take care of it when she moves it outside or leaves it in a container outside?
Slowly acclimate it, and certainly initially making sure it's not exposed to either a lot of sun or a lot of wind. They're very tender, and she'll want to slowly acclimate it over about a week's time, bringing it out and back in during different times of the day to get it ready to be outside for a longer period of time. So,
Now, I don't know that that's anything like a butterbur, is it?
No.
Okay, well, we have a butterbur question. This is from Lynn in Duluth. She bought 2 butterbur plants at the plant sale at the Rose Garden and has seen the ones at your house, which are lovely, and is wondering about where I plant them, the best site, how big they're going to get, are they invasive or poisonous? And she wants to put them next to the house to cover a pipe.
We should really do a whole show just on this.
Butterbur.
Butterbur. Butterbur is Penicilloides, so it is a perennial that, briefly answering her question, she wants it in shade.
Okay.
She wants it in a damp location, no afternoon sun. So if the foundation of her house gets hot or indirect sun, she won't want to put it there because it will wilt every single day it's exposed to direct sunlight, especially
Okay.
afternoon. So she'll want to make sure that she does that. So nice shady location, damp location. One of those spots that we're all looking for plants to grow in if
Right.
we have
There's
that in
an
our yard,
example.
so it's perfect. The leaves will get about 3 to 3.5 feet
The
across.
size of an elephant ear,
Yes,
right?
yes, and does pretty well. The flowers are nondescript.
Okay.
And thanks for coming to our plant sale. We're glad you were there. Lynn.
Yes, all right. Gail in Woodland wants to know, how can I get rid of wild strawberry in my lawn?
Oh, now there's going to be a challenge. Chemically, you could do it, I would suggest the fall of the year. There are any number of things that will take it out. It's not real aggressive. It has a very shallow root system, so if you have a few plants, again, I would dig it. But once again, it will tolerate sandier soils. It'll tolerate low fertility soils. So once you've removed it, you want to be sure you come in and provide the nutrient that the grass wants.
Okay, and another one on how do I get rid of. Helen in Cable wants to know about removing lawn violets. Is there a chemical treatment you can use without killing the lawn grass?
You know, there is, but it's a different group of compounds. It's not going to be your common weed be gone type of products. So you're going to have to look for products that specifically control the violet family. It's a totally different genus and totally different control materials.
Okay. Azaleas aren't growing as they should. They haven't grown much in the last few years. They do bloom some. The location is eastern exposure, partial shade. What can I do?
Again, difficult winter, depending on what's happened with her buds. Probably the most common thing is deer browse throughout the winter, so she'll want to make sure that she has flower buds on those azaleas. First of all, if it doesn't, more than likely she's dealt with deer or problems with that, so she'll want to protect them during the winter.
You know, I think that's really good advice, Tom. The other thing is, you know, they're acid lovers, and our soils typically aren't not acidic enough. So it sounds like it's just growing poorly, and I would suggest a little ammonium sulfate just to keep that pH down and supply the nitrogen that the plant needs.
Okay. We have a picture to go along with this question. It's from Nancy in Rice Lake Township, who has acidic soil in the flower garden and is wondering if she can cut down on the horsetail weed by putting lime in the soil. There's a good example of horsetail weed.
You know, horsetail weed, also known as equisetum scouring brush, very, very primitive, and it will tolerate a wide range of pHs. If she were to apply enough lime to kill this, you probably wouldn't be able to grow anything there. So we don't really have good products for control for the homeowner. I'm afraid she might be limited to just hand digging and trying to get as much of that underground root and rhizome system as you can. Once again, there's the back.
Yeah, yeah. Or we also talked about controls. She could take a garden like that, cover it with heavy plastic, mulch over it with heavy mulch, take it out of circulation for a period of time. Very difficult to control, like Bob said,
yeah.
and
tough to dig.
Even difficult to dig because it is really adapted to dealing with that. So
They're so tender, they just break right off.
You know, we get so many of these lime questions, and lime is not the miracle material. Lime gives you a more basic soil, and if you're growing alfalfa, that's what you want. For most of our other plants, it's not going to cure a lot of things,
Yeah,
even though
yeah,
a lot of it's applied, perhaps needlessly.
yeah, and perfect with gin and tonics.
Good.
Or in your margarita.
In your margarita.
Okay. Oh, gee, we don't have time for another question, I don't think, because I wanted to tell you guys one more thing. It's about my scarf. Do you like it?
Really? You look stunning.
Okay, so this was made with the dye of another great invasive from our area. It's the buckthorn.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thanks. that isn't, why I'm telling you this, because I just wanted to mention, because again, this is a big old weed. This is more like brush.
And introduced because it was so invasive, so hardy, and so durable, and now it's kind of out of control, so you're right.
Yeah.
Again.
But it makes lovely dye for scarves.
It apparently, yes, it
and
does.
good wood
it
for
does.
carving and other things.
Yes, and this is local artist Teresa Hornstein, if I'm saying that right, who made the scarf. Anyway, I want to let people know that we did a tip on eradicating buckthorn, and you can find that on our website. You can also find all kinds of information about our program, and you can find past editions of Great Gardening. So go to wdse.org/gardening, look for some upcoming events and calendar items there as well. All right, well, that's our time for tonight. Thanks again to Bob and Tom for all the valuable information that you provide for area gardeners and growers. It's really appreciated. I hope you know that.
Well, we enjoy the opportunity to share a little information. I hope everyone's really enjoying the season. We're off to a great start, don't you think, Tom?
Absolutely.
Good. All right. Thanks also to our phone volunteers from Carleton County Master Gardeners. And from all of us here at Great Gardening, thanks for watching and enjoy the garden.